Looking to take your fitness skills and health to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Building Ambition Podcast with your host, nutrition coach, and powerlifter turned personal trainer who is 130 pounds lighter, Adam Hicks, and your co-host on the path to losing 160 pounds, Alan Zimmerman. Get ready to be inspired.
Well, what do you guys think about that?
I think that's pretty awesome.
5 o'clock right on the dot.
Wow.
No feedback, no static. We've already got our guest on the line. I think I've got my outline pulled up. I think it's safe to say that I'm starting to figure this thing out. So
how does that even work?
I don't know. I don't know. But let's not mess around too much. I want to get right into to our interview. So anybody that's joining us now or that will be joining us later, watching this video in the future, we appreciate you tuning in. I'm Adam, the host of the Building Ambition Podcast, joined as always by my co-host Alan. Hope everybody in the States had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I think I just recently woke up from my carb coma, so I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm feeling bloated, so I'm glad we got this table in front of us so nobody can see it.
Right.
But anyways, if you guys are watching, you can see that we've already got our guest on the line. So our guest this week is a 27-year-old NPC men's physique competitor. He's overcome injuries, numerous surgeries, and eventually transforming his physique and discovering his passion for health and fitness. Jake is currently a personal trainer, and he's working with student athletes. So everybody, please welcome Jake Utz. Is that correct? I should have asked you sooner, but is that how you say your last name?
Awesome. Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Awesome. So welcome, man. I appreciate you hanging out with us for a little bit. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was absolutely awesome. I'm kind of feeling the same way, too. We actually just got done with one of my Thanksgivings about 3 hours ago. So
oh, wow.
I'm still in the very much food coma stage.
Well, I'm glad you were able to stay awake for us. So I know that's usually a struggle for me as soon as you get that big meal and everything hits your belly. And then, I'm the one that's usually found in the chair with my mouth hanging wide open and a little bit of drool there in the corner. And I think Alan can relate to that too a little bit. So
yeah, I'm still suffering from 3 days.
Yeah. So, but it was good. Yeah. It was good. So once again, Jake, thanks for hanging out with us. Let's go ahead and
absolutely.
Why don't you kind of introduce yourself? I know I gave you a brief little intro there, but I guess, kind of give us your background. Were you an athletic kid growing up? Did you have a passion for health and fitness, or did that come later in life? Why don't you just introduce yourself to us and tell us your story a little bit?
So again, not to repeat anything that you said, but yes, I did come kind of from an athletic family. I have two older brothers. So growing up, it was very competitive growing up, and they were definitely hard on me to a point where I'm a lot bigger than they are now. So I was a lot bigger than them when I hit about 5th grade. So that kind of came to an end, but everything was very competitive. My wife will agree to that as well, that has carried over, and now everything that I do becomes very competitive, even if I don't want it to be.
Yeah.
But with fitness and health, I remember, I think it was in 4th grade for the first time I went to the YMCA with my mom. So that's where the fitness and the health started to come into play. She was very much into healthy eating and being fit. So I grew up with that with my whole life. So it's very much just kind of been a part of my life without even me knowing it.
Cool. So, and I don't know if we're jumping ahead here, but I really want to get to this, because when we were going back and forth in the emails and trying to set everything up, you mentioned that you had a significant injury, or I don't really know how you want to word the condition that you had.
Yeah.
So do you want to explain to the listeners what happened there and what kind of went into the healing process? Because I think it was a little bit more involved than everybody kind of originally thought.
Yeah, so it actually wasn't an injury. I went in for my physical for my football season senior year, and I had a little opening where your tailbone is on the skin. So we went into the doctor, and the doctor said, it's fine, you'll grow out of it. To me, it sounded it wasn't a big deal. So I played my football season. I noticed that the pain was starting to get worse and worse as the season went on. I go in the basketball season, I make it about halfway through basketball season, and the pain is so bad that I couldn't sit down at all. So all day at school I was standing, all day at home I was standing until the time I went to bed, and then I slept. So at that point, my mom took me to another doctor, and they looked at it, and they determined it was a pilonidal cyst, which is a cyst that's in between your tailbone and the outside skin.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my first surgery when I was a senior in high school. They took the cyst out. They left the wound open so it could heal from the inside out, and I wouldn't have a pocket. It didn't heal correctly. I had about 2 inches left to go, and it wouldn't heal. It would rip back open a little bit farther. Went through countless times where they do the silver nitrate, and they would actually try to burn it shut.
Oh, geez.
So I ended up getting another surgery. The cyst was gone. So after the first surgery, the cyst was gone. I got another one just to try to fix the incision that they made. I ended up getting MRSA in the hospital, so it didn't heal. I got a really bad infection. So they waited, had another surgery to try to fix the wound again. Got MRSA a second time. And then they found out that my body is allergic to the stitches that dissolve in your body.
Oh, wow.
So I had about 57 stitches push up through my skin, and they had to go back through and pull them all back out. And then after that, I had 3 more surgeries to try to just close the wound. I had 4 Z-plasties done, which is where they cut 2 diagonal strips in your body, and then they take your skin and they fold it like that, and then they stitch it shut.
Oh.
So I had 3 or 4 of those done. And then my last 2, I went down to the University of Cincinnati, and I had one of the best plastic surgeons in Ohio do my surgery, and he went very aggressive on it. And then afterwards, I had almost the same laser as what they do to remove tattoos,
Mm-hmm.
and they burned incision. I had about 9 treatments of that. So I had to wear the goggles and the face mask and everything so my eyes didn't get burnt. And they would just burn it because usually I could make it about 12 zaps is what I could take. So they'd zap it about 12 times.
Jeez.
So then, yeah, after that was 5 years, 6 surgeries.
Wow. So, I mean, what was the total hospital time there? I mean, were you just kind of in and treated for the MRSA and then out, and then it was just kind of outpatient stuff for the surgeries then at that point?
Yeah, so it was all outpatient. Usually I would have them done during like my Christmas break or spring break in college. And it would usually, like if I had it done on Christmas break, I would have it done the day I got home.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go until about the day I had to go back to college without ever sitting down.
Jeez.
Because it took about that long for that wound to be able to heal, and I felt comfortable with sitting and putting pressure on it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty horrible.
That's how I spent pretty much my whole college life was dealing with that. And there was one really bad time where we thought it had healed, and I just went to sit down in my college house, and it ripped. The incision ripped open about 6 inches.
Wow.
And I had to drive. I went to University of Toledo, which is about 2 hours from where my parents live. So I literally got in my car 9 o'clock at night and drove home, and we called the surgeon the next day.
So when you're dealing with all this, what's your activity level like?
None.
Oh, wow.
I was told never to ride a bike. I was told never to squat with any weight at all. I was told that if I was going to work out, that it had to be very, very light because they didn't want me to put any strain on the area, and they didn't want the incision or any of the incisions to bust open. So there was no activity.
So you're just basically standing around all day and then going to class, and that's about it, huh?
Yep,
wow.
Absolutely.
That must have been a lot of fun. Wow.
No, it was a crazy experience, and when I look back on it now, it doesn't seem like it was that long, but at the time it seemed like a lifetime. Like it never seemed like it was ever going to go away, and it was just every 3 months I was being told that I was going to have another surgery, and every single time it'd get so close to healing, and literally it'd be like a pinhole left, and something would happen where it would split open, or I'd get MRSA, and then it would bust open, and something would happen. So even that was my last surgery was in 2011, maybe 2012. And still to this day, I think about it every day.
Jeez. So, I mean,
And I still worry about it.
oh, I bet. So what was the healing process like, or I guess maybe like the rehab process after that for you to, because I mean, you must have had a pretty significant layoff there because you were dealing with it for so long. So at what point were you able, to get back in the gym and kind of focus on maybe what your goals were at that point?
My last treatment I did with the laser, where they would burn the incision, I asked the surgeon, what could I start doing to start lifting weights or anything like that. And he told me again that, I should probably stay off of ever riding a bike for a long period of time, just because I'd be sitting right on the incision. He said again, he's like, with squatting, he's like, I would recommend you not squat any weight at all. And he's like, and again, with doing heavy compound lifts, he's like, I would avoid putting a lot of weight on, just because he was afraid that I would blow out the incision. And to me, it was kind of like, I don't know, I didn't like that. Because of that, even though I was healed, now I have all those restrictions where you're telling me I can't do this, or I can do it, but you don't put a lot of weight, and don't. After 6 years of babying it and not being able to do anything, and then you finally get it healed, I guess that was the last thing I wanted to hear was, okay, well, you're healed, but don't do any of this ever again.
Yeah.
So to me, I took it easy. And back then I knew nothing about weightlifting as far as I do now. So I stuck to very basic stuff like what I did in football and basketball. But I just eased into it, and forever I was afraid to squat just because of what he had said to me and ripping the incision open from just sitting down. It was very terrifying to squat. But then again, like as soon as I would do it, and I'm like, okay, well, that feels okay. And then I would do a little bit more weight, and I'm like, okay, that feels okay. So it was just gradual baby steps of getting past the fear of ruining my body again.
So, and then I know also when we were talking, you mentioned you moved from Ohio to Florida, and that's when you kind of got the bug to compete in men's physique. So you weren't interested in any sort of bodybuilding or physique competitions prior to that, or what kind of went into you getting the bug to get on stage and compete in some board shorts or some Speedos or whatever it may be?
Once I really got into lifting, eating correctly, and really caring about, I guess, the fitness industry, I always told myself I wanted to compete, but then it really came down to I made excuses that, I would tell myself, I don't feel like I'm big enough. I don't feel like I would be able to compete on stage. Or I would tell myself, okay, I'm going to get lean, and then we'll see how it looks. And if I think I look like I can compete, I'll compete. So it was just time after time, I just blatantly made excuses for myself to get out of it and not do it. And my brother-in-law owns a gym down in Florida. My wife and I moved down there, and he has been competing since I think like the early 90s. So he did the bodybuilding. So he really knew the ins and outs of competing and nutrition. So he was the kind of one that kind of pushed me into it. And from day one, as soon as we got down there, is when I started. And what it came down to was just I signed up for the show. So then there was no excuse that, well, we'll see how it goes, or let's lean out and see how I look. So I'm signed up for the show. So whether I'm in shape or not, I have to go.
And you said you didn't know much about it or you didn't know what you know now as far as training and nutrition and stuff like that. So once you signed that contract or whatever your entry form maybe, you've made the decision to start, or you made the decision to compete. What do you do as far as learning, what your diet's going to look like or what your training is going to look like? I mean, did you still use, the same modalities you were using when you played football, or how'd that go? Excuse me. How'd that go?
So again, my brother-in-law really helped me a lot. And before it, I always thought, well, to get lean like that, you really have to, to deprive your body of food and carbs and water and everything like that. And in football, it was just eat as much as you can, as many times as you can. It didn't really matter what it was, just eat. And that's what we were told. You just eat a lot. Well, now I know that, I never deprived myself of food. I was eating up to 7 meals a day when I was competing for my show, or where I was training for my show. I was still eating carbs. Even the week of my show, I hear people talking about how, their coach or whatever only let them drink a couple ounces of water, a day, and then 2 days before the show they didn't have any water. Like I was drinking plenty of water up until the day of the show, and obviously the day of the show you don't drink very much water. But having my brother-in-law there, and like I said, he knew the ins and the outs, I think helped me a lot. And there were some other people that I knew that were down, and they actually did the same show as me. And I remember the one told me that they were struggling with energy, being able to stay awake without having the carbs, and we still had 7 weeks to go.
Oh wow!
And she asked me, and she goes, "How are you doing?" I'm like, I feel great. Like I'm not eating any different. It's just we changed the numbers of what I'm eating, and my numbers changed every week. But I was like, I feel great. I was like, my energy is awesome. My strength was actually going up, my muscle was going up, my fat was coming down. I was like, I feel great, and I felt bad for it. I was like, you have 7 weeks left, and you're already burnt out.
Yeah. So how did you guys go about setting up the diet then? I mean, was it kind of, because we've had several guys on here in the past that's done men's physique or bodybuilding or whatever it may be, and the big trend seems to be the whole, if it fits your macros. Now, was that kind of what you were doing, or did you have it, specifically laid out that at this time I'm eating this meal, and then kind of you don't have to think about it or track anything at that point?
So we did not do the macros, and I can see where that works, but my big problem is that kind of reminds me of what's it called? I think it's Weight Watchers, where you get the points.
Yeah.
And I've heard of people, what they'll do is they will like starve themselves and save up their points, and then so they can use their points for drinking beer on the weekend or eating McDonald's. And they're like, well, I still hit my points. I'm like, yeah, you hit your points, but you filled your body full with garbage. So ours was here's how many carbs you need. Here's the carbs I can pick from. Here's how many proteins you need. Here's the proteins you can pick from. This is what your breakdown is going to be of carbs and proteins for each day. And then I did carb cycling. So I usually did 3 high and 2 low, and that was it.
Now,
so basically what it kind of came down to, and it didn't bother me at all. I ate chicken and rice, and I used MCT oil for my fat. And that was literally every single day. And I ate Chipotle a lot.
Very cool. So when you started out, what was your weight? I mean, what was your body fat like? Did you track all of that? Do you know how much you lost over the process?
Yep. Yes. So when I got down to Florida, I was 215, and I was about 16% body fat. We did it up until the Wednesday before my show. So my show was on a Saturday. The Wednesday before, I was 178, and I was 2.1% body fat.
Jeez. Wow. And how many weeks was the prep?
It was 19. So it was a little bit longer probably what I needed it to be. But yeah, it was 19.
So just about what would that be? 5 months and around 30-some pounds and 14% body fat? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What was your cardio like?
The craziest...
No, go ahead.
The craziest thing was I woke up Monday, the week of my show, and my brother-in-law, my coach, he kept on telling me, he's like, just wait. Because I woke up and I'm like, man, I don't look dry. Like, I don't feel as lean as I should be. And the week of my show, I ate nothing but chicken, nothing on it, no salt, no pepper, anything, and sweet potatoes. And that's it for every single meal. And the sweet potatoes literally was like shrink wrap. And I kid you not. And like my body would change like every couple hours. I would look in the mirror and I could literally see my body and my skin getting tighter.
Yeah, I mean, those pictures that you have posted up, they're pretty incredible. And we got a lot of compliments about you when I started posting this afternoon. And I will admit, as I sit here with mashed potatoes and Alfredo noodles in my belly, that I'm a little jealous. And envious of your discipline and drive that you have.
We had sweet potatoes.
We did. Yeah, we had sweet potatoes. You want to fill them in on what else was on those sweet potatoes?
No.
It didn't quite work. We didn't have the shrink wrap effect, though, that Jake had.
More of a blow-up doll.
Yeah. Very cool.
Unfortunately, it doesn't happen every time.
Yeah.
But the cardio was, for the most part, it was 3 to 4 days a week, and it was 30 to 40 minutes. And I would do 3 machines. So it'd usually be I'd hop on the stepper for 10 minutes, and then I would hop off, get on the treadmill, put the incline all the way up and walk, and then for 10 minutes. And then we had a Versa climber at the gym, so I would do that for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I did 40 minutes, I would jump back up on the stepper or the treadmill, and that was it.
Was it
very quick?
Was it fasted, or did you just do it after a workout?
A few times I started, I probably did it for probably 3 weeks straight. I did it, and honestly, I felt like I was doing more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
After I got done, I would just feel awful. And then I would eat afterwards, and I would not feel full at all. And I was eating a good amount of food, especially in the morning. And I felt like I wanted to eat all day then when I did it. And that, to me, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. Low intensity cardio, or were you doing HIIT at that point, or what did that look like?
It was pretty much high intensity, especially for the stepper was definitely high intensity. The treadmill was not. The treadmill, obviously, you're just walking uphill.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the treadmills where I sweated the most. It would just like a shower. And then the Versa climber is very high intensity.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And I'm sorry, I know we're kind of going off the scheduled outline here, but like we keep referencing Thanksgiving dinner, and I know Monday's rolling around, so I got to get my butt back in there. And I'm just trying to get some ideas from Jake here, so I can.
I know.
I can
get your mind right.
Get rid of some of this bloating. But just to go back a little bit here, a couple more questions about your contest prep there. You said, basically you're eating the same thing day in and day out, 6-7 meals a day, lots of chicken and rice. How do you not, are you just wired that way to where you can just, grind through it and it is what it is, you're just fueling your body? Or, you had to get cravings at some point. How did you deal with that? And the reason I bring this up, not only for myself, and I'm sure Alan's curious about this as well, but, we're coming up on the new year. And everybody's going to have the resolutions and things like that. A lot of them have to do with losing weight. But the thought of going off of a piece of paper and for 7 days a week, 7 times a day, I'm doing the same thing, it kind of, I don't know if it overwhelms people or maybe depresses them a little bit. And it's something that not a lot of people can do. So how did you do that, maybe from a mental standpoint?
And honestly, I think I am hardwired this way. It didn't bother me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get that question a lot, especially the people that I was training down in Florida. They would see, or they would ask me what I'm eating, and the answer was always the same. And they would always ask, "Don't you get tired of that?" And I'm just like, "No, like I get excited to eat my chicken and rice every meal." When I did have a craving, it would actually be for Chipotle, and again, I'm eating chicken and rice. So it's not for everybody though, and I realize that. And I know a lot of people like just cannot do it.
Mm-hmm.
They get tired of chicken after a couple meals.
Wow.
I always tell people you just have to find what works for you. And it's also about how you feel. I know a lot of people, when they start their resolution, it's all about what the scale tells them. So if the scale tells them they lost 2 pounds, they're happy. But I found out a lot that they could lose those 2 pounds, but they feel like crap, or maybe they're not happy. Maybe they don't even feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of had, when I got out of my show, I kind of had to realize that too, because I started to see the weight going the other way. And obviously the abs didn't stay as defined as the picture you guys posted there,
mm-hmm.
Which I knew that was going to happen, but it plays a big mental game with you, because after the show I wanted to eat, and then I started to eat, and then I started to see the definition go away, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're ruining all your hard work.
Yeah.
So it was a very hard battle to get over that and to just get back into a normal routine and kind of let myself eat when I wanted to eat and what I wanted to eat again. But again, going back to it, I think more people need to worry about how they feel rather than, again, what the scale tells them. I think people think that the only way they're going to be happy is if they lose weight, where you can be happy. And yes, losing weight's a good thing, but ultimately it should come down to how you feel on the inside and how you feel about your body.
Yeah. And that's a very important point. And I don't know if that's something that we've ever brought up before, or maybe anybody else. So it's really important to understand how you feel and understand how different foods are making you feel. And it's not just, we constantly say that it's not just about that number on the scale, but I mean, I lose myself to that a lot, and I'm sure, Alan, you do too. If that number doesn't change, or if it happens to go the wrong way, it kind of sets my mood for the day sometimes.
Well, I'm a lot like Jake with the fact that I like to eat chicken and rice, and I'm happy with that. I could eat that 2-3 times a day, 5 times, 6 times. It doesn't matter. And I look at things with that regard. However, on that other side of it, when I do have a craving, it's generally for a bag of cookies.
Yeah.
It's not a cookie. It's not one brownie. It's the half a tray or a plate of brownies. And I mean, those are the binge triggers that I have to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're in the house, guess what? It's like free range. It's on free range grazing in here. And it's hard to stay away from that stuff.
It is.
And I'm thinking the other side of the thing that separates me from you is we don't have a Chipotle's here in town.
Yeah. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending how you look at it.
Well, I think with the chicken and the rice, I can do Chipotle's.
Yeah.
Pretty regular.
Yeah. So, Jake, just out of curiosity, I'm assuming, like Alan said, when he does, and not just him, myself included here, I do really well if I don't have maybe those cheat triggers laying around, but I have little kids, so I mean, inevitably, we're going to end up with junk food in the house. And if my kids aren't at my house, they're over at their grandparents' house, which means Alan's going to have the junk food laying around.
Well, I'm telling you, she goes out and buys cheat triggers just because she knows they're coming. So
So I mean, were you pretty lucky in that sense? I'm assuming that your wife was pretty supportive, saying that your brother-in-law, he's a bodybuilder and he owns a gym and things like that. So, I mean, was that just something that it was never in your environment? It was never brought into your house, or you were just able to just shut that off and ignore it and grind through as far as those triggers laying around the house?
No, I got really lucky, and actually before I signed up for the show, I had a talk with my wife, and I said, look, I'm only going to do this, one, if you are 100% behind me and you're going to support me. And I said, then two, I need you to keep me in check. So if we go out, and I want to eat something, you need to be able to tell me, like, no, you shouldn't be eating that. Or the same thing with not having the sweets or anything around the house. So I owe a lot to her. She definitely helped me a lot through it, especially towards the end. Probably about the last 2 weeks was when I could finally start to feel what my diet was doing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably the hardest. And that's when she was just like, look, like, you have 2 more weeks, just get through it. And then, things will go back to normal. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing, and what I tell people, is to find someone that's going to support you, whether that's someone in your house or outside of your house. But you need to have that supportive base, whether it's to help you, not do something where you're not eating the bad food or the junk food, or if you do eat the bad food or junk food, the supportive person that's going to be like, look, like, one meal, yes, it's bad, it's not going to kill you, but they're trying to save you from going down a long, slippery road of one meal turning into a day, turning into a week, turning into
4 months
of cheat meals.
Yeah, great point. Okay, a couple more questions about the contest. What did your actual weight training look like? I mean, how many days a week were you going? Was it, single body part each day? Were you combining things? Talk to me about that.
I got lucky since I worked at a gym. It was pretty easy. I was training almost every day, every week. I would take a day off here and there. But since I was there every day, it made sense for me just to do one muscle at a time.
Mm-hmm.
A couple times I would throw some things together just because I felt like I was getting bored. So I'd throw things together. But It was usually 45 minutes to an hour. Pretty high pace. I don't like to take a lot of rest. Usually my rests are from walking from one exercise to the other. And then Saturday we did legs every Saturday at the gym. All the trainers would do legs, and my brother-in-law would create the workout. So it was usually pretty intense, and usually ended up with lunging around the building in Florida outside. So it was pretty awful.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. So did it pretty much stay the same? I mean, from the beginning of the 16 or 18 weeks or 19 weeks till the end, was it kind of the same routine as far as the training?
Yeah, like I said, I changed it up a little bit just because I was getting bored. The last 2 weeks, like I said, were a struggle. It was a struggle for me to do my workouts just because my body fat was low, and when I could literally feel my food, like when my 3 hours hit, I could literally feel my body just shut down because it was literally running off nothing until I put more food in it. So working out was not fun. I couldn't get a pump. I couldn't really focus on what I was doing, and I just kind of felt like I was going through the motions. The week before the show, I had to do cardio every single day. That was one of the hardest things I've done. So I didn't even work out that week. I had to do cardio every day, and it was light cardio. It was usually just the stepper and the treadmill. And then the week of the show, it was all very light. A lot of days I actually just used the resistance bands, and I actually worked on things I was going to do before the show to get pumped up. And that's pretty much what I did, because at that point I wasn't going to build any more muscle. I wasn't going to change anything in a week. So it was just kind of just go through the motions just to kind of pass the time and keep my body kind of ready for it.
About what was your body fat 3 weeks before the show? Kind of take us through, did you check it that often, or did you have an idea where you were?
Yeah, we checked it every 2 weeks. So 3 weeks before the show, I was sitting around like 3.7%. 2 weeks before the show, I was sitting close to, I would say, probably 3.1, 3.2%, maybe dipping down in the twos. And then, like I said, the Wednesday before, it was low. It was like 2.2.
Wow.
So that's an example of why you didn't have the energy. I mean, there was nothing there, and that's why we can't maintain that kind of a percentage of body fat year round.
And what did your calories and your macros kind of break down throughout the prep? Like, what'd you start out at, maybe calorie, carb, and protein wise, and then what'd you end up at?
So I never count calories. I would say my carbs were ever doing on my high carb days, I was close to 400 grams of carbs for a day. And protein, I don't think I ever went above 250. And that'd be for a whole day. So then towards the end,
you were still, when you started out, that was a pretty substantial amount of calories to be dieting on. And I think that's what people kind of miss the boat on that. They want to start out at 1,200, 800, or sometimes even 500 calories. And just there from your high day with 400 grams of carbohydrates, that's 1,600 calories. And then add in another 800 some calories from protein. So that's a substantial amount.
That's
of
a nice little chunk of.
Yeah. What'd you end up with there towards the end?
Towards the end, for example, like the week prior, I was eating anywhere from, I think the highest day of protein I had was, I was having about 6 ounces, 5 to 6 ounces per meal of protein. And then it was low for the sweet potato. I want to say it was like the highest I had was like up to 8% or 8 ounces of sweet potatoes per meal. And that was like on Wednesday. So Wednesday was my highest day. And then from there, I actually backed it down. The morning of my show, I had 2 hamburgers with no buns, nothing on them, so just a hamburger meat. I had 3 rice cakes. I had a spoonful of jelly and a spoonful of peanut butter.
Well,
that's what I tell people. Like, it's not that hard, and you don't have to starve yourself. And I tell people all the time, like, and I show them the pictures, and I'm like, this is what happened, and I was eating a lot of food. Like I told people, I was eating 7 times a day, and like it's not what people think it is, and it's not. I mean, it was hard work, yes, and it's a lot of mental strength. But I tell people, like, it's really not. It's not rocket science. It's like you have to figure out what works for you, and you just have to keep doing it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, and we've said this numerous times, the internet is a great tool, but when it comes to, researching a diet or some popular nutritional trend or something, it almost becomes paralysis by analysis because we get hit with so much information, and everybody's got the new popular sexy diet that we should be trying that's going to give you abs in 30 days, and it's just not the case. And then when somebody starts out at 800 to 1,200 calories starting out on your diet, it's like, where are you going to go from there? I mean, are you going to drop it down to 400 calories on your low day at that point? It's just not, it's not feasible, and it's not practical.
No, and then you get burned out right away because instantly your body is just thrown in the shock, and it has no idea what you're doing, and you're not going to want to continue to do it.
Yeah. And then, we were talking about people maybe setting their New Year's resolutions earlier, and when they go and they're going to start this new diet on Monday, and then you compound on top of that, they're going to start going to the gym for the first time. So they're using extra calories there, and then they're already practically starving themselves. It's a recipe for disaster at that point. So very good information.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm curious about also, and then we'll get away from your contest here, what'd you do post-show? Like, I mean, did you reverse diet out of it and slowly increase everything, or did you just kind of go nuts and hit up Chipotle for a few weeks?
Well, actually, I went to Chipotle right after my show, after the night show. And I got literally everything on a burrito. And then from there, it was right by a Steak and Shake. So from there, I went to Steak and Shake, and I got a milkshake. And felt awful.
You did. I was like,
the next day, we had IHOP for breakfast, and then I had Five Guys later on that day.
Wow.
And again, felt awful.
Mm-hmm. That's how you withdraw from that type of diet, isn't it? That's how you do it.
Yeah. But no, actually, I think my diet and everything coming off the show was harder than doing the show and prepping for the show. Because again, it was weird waking up and seeing your body like that. Like when I looked in the mirror, it didn't seem real, especially like the morning of my show. It was very strange to wake up and look like that. So you go from that to, as soon as you start to put food back in your body, it instantly starts to go away. I mean, no one is ever that shredded all the time. So it was very hard for me to want to eat and want to have just a normal diet. I mean, I still prepped my meals afterwards. I still did chicken and rice. The only thing I did different is if my wife, Emily, and I, if we wanted to go out to eat, we went out to eat. Or if, we just happened to be out and I was hungry, I would eat something. So I let myself splurge a little bit, but I was still very much on a strict scheduled diet or eating. I don't even call it a diet. I just call it, how I eat.
Right.
But I didn't want to put food in me because I just saw what it was doing, and it was taking away like all the cuts in my body. And so it was one of the weirdest times in my life, just because I was like, what are you doing? You're ruining your body. All this hard work, and now it's just, you're just eating it away. So it honestly took me about 2 months at the most to like get over that fact of like, this is okay. This is a good thing. I need the food. I need the extra calories. I need the extra carbs and everything to get bigger and build more muscle. But it was very mentally straining of waking up every day and like seeing your body go back to how it was, months prior.
So what are you sitting at right now, like body fat wise and body weight wise?
I weighed myself today. I'm 218, and I'm probably still floating around, I would say 8 to 10% body fat.
Wow. Good
Do you
for
still see your abs?
Not right now. Oh, you can. But definitely not like you could before, but yes, I can still see my abs for the most part.
Yeah. And the
Thanksgiving did not help.
Yeah, sure. You just got to get some more sweet potatoes, man.
Well, do you think though that some of that too could be the addition of I don't know, but I would think salt in your diet would be a pretty bad element to put in there. So do you think maybe a lot of that could be attributed to the not having the cuts like you would be the salt?
Like water weight wise?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I like now the one thing that I do like is before I always said, before I ever competed and before I even thought about competing, it's always like, well, if I wanted to, I could get lean, but realistically I couldn't. I had no idea how to do it. I had no clue. But now, like, I know what it takes to get back to there. So now I know, and that was the big thing, is like I can go back to that. I do plan on competing again, so I know eventually I will get that cut and that lean again. So that was kind of a thing that helped me through it.
Well, and there's going to be a big difference too from starting at 7 or 8% body fat as what you were almost 17% when you started the last time. So, and you must have. It sounds like you've put on a substantial amount of muscle since your show as well. So that's going to help out too as far as the calories and the macros you're going to be able to take in too. So that'll be exciting. But
absolutely.
And I kind of want your opinion on this too. We can talk about reverse dieting from a contest prep standpoint, but I think there's a lot to be said for maybe a reverse diet when it comes to, and I don't know what the term would be, but like your general population who's not doing a competition. So like Alan, for example, we've had conversations numerous times. Like his goal is to lose 160 pounds, and then he's asked me a few times, what do we do once we hit that goal? And in my mind, I always thought the reverse diet was the way to go for somebody like that, because then you slowly start to introduce more macronutrients, your carbs, your proteins, your fats, and kind of you're tracking that along with body fat and the weight from the scale and how he's feeling, and then you can kind of see eventually what his macro count is going to be to where he's going to kind of level out and his weight's going to be where he wants it to be. So is that something that you use with people that you're working with, or what's your thoughts on that?
Very much so. I'm actually helping a few people, and it's always usually general. They just want to lose some fat off the beginning. So what I usually typically, what I'm trying to do for them is, okay, let's lose the weight that you want to lose. Let's, for example, I have a guy and he wanted to lose like 22 pounds. So he's down to about 18. So he's almost there. And then he wants to then start to build the muscle. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, first, let's get the fat off and then we'll start building the muscle. But I said at some point, I just want you to get to a point where you're happy with your body, you're happy with the way you're eating, and you can just kind of maintain, and it's not a constant change, it's not a constant trying to figure out what the hell I'm trying to do with my diet, my body. And I think that's what works for the general population, is just finding something, like I said again, that just works for you, that works for your body, and you're happy with and you feel good with.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that Adam and I had talked about, though, with that weight, that elusive weight of happiness and what your brain or your body says you should be at, is finding that and then being able to, because it's just like anything else. You got down to, what was it, 178?
Yeah, 178.
178 for your show. Well, if you would have stayed at 178, kept fighting that and stayed down there, would your brain trigger finally say, okay, we're going to make your body weight 180? You know what I mean? And now when you eat, it's going to burn for 180. It's going to work for 180. Or you see where I'm going with this?
Kind of finding that. We always talk about finding homeostasis to where you're going to have to get to that weight and then stay there for so long. And then that's kind of your body's set point at this point. But
Right. I mean, I know people that are overweight, okay? And yeah, they eat the wrong foods, but the amount of calories they take in a day are less than what it takes to support that weight. Mm-hmm. But they stay that weight.
Yeah.
Even though it's kind of like that, whatever it does, they may fluctuate a pound or two because they ate so much off on their own body fat or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, the metabolism and the metabolic rate and the process is kind of it's a strange thing, and I've heard it, and I'm going to let Jake answer this too, but I think I heard it from Lane Norton. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Jake, but he said, there's hundreds of processes that go into the metabolic process, and we're able to manipulate maybe 24 of them right now at this point. So it's a strange and often frustrating and fascinating thing at that point. But what do you think about that? About the idea of a set point as far as our body weight goes, or body fat percentage, or something like that goes?
Honestly, I think it's good that you have a goal that you want to get to down to a body weight and a body fat percentage. But I also think that with anything, your body will adapt to whatever you're doing. So I remember when I hardly used to ever drink any water, and now I can't imagine going a day without drinking as much as the water I do now. So, but then when I wasn't drinking any water, I wasn't eating the way I do now. That all felt normal. My body never sent off any alarms or anything that's saying like, hey, you know, we need to change this. So the same people that are at an unhealthy weight, to them, it might seem completely normal, and they might not have any warning signs yet. So I think your body can get comfortable with any situation. Like I could have stayed, 178, 180, and I could have forced my body to eventually think that that's normal. Would that have been a good thing? No. I mean, it's kind of the same thing as someone staying in an unhealthy weight. Not the best thing, but for them, it seems normal.
Yeah. Great point. And a great point about the water too. And that's something else that I say to people too is, I was almost 340 pounds at one point, and I didn't know how bad I felt until I started to feel better. So I think that's something that people need to consider too.
Well, and I know that, like for instance, the water, it's not a trick, but it's the idea that you are thirsty, and instead of having that snack cake or the cookie or whatever, have a glass of water. See if that curbs some of that craving, because your body wants something, and it's probably a drink.
So, anyways, to wrap.
What I did.
Oh, go ahead, man.
No, I was just saying that's actually what I did a couple times during my prep for my show. If I did feel like I was getting hungry or if I was craving something, it would be usually a rice cake or two, and then a big glass of water, and it would instantly fill me up.
Great.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I'd probably have to use a whole bag full of rice cakes.
Bag of rice cakes, one of the 6. There's 6 in a.
Put some peanut butter on top of them.
Each one.
Yeah, there you go. So, Jake, just to wrap it up about your contest, I appreciate you talking about it more than we originally planned. Yeah. But how'd you end up placing? How did it go?
So I did 2 different divisions. I did novice, and then I did my height class. So my height class I knew was going to be a challenge because I'm 6'6".
Oh, wow.
And the height class was 5'10" and above.
Wow.
So the other tallest person was 6 foot. So then you had from 6 foot under, and there was 9 guys in that class. So 8 of them were 6 foot and under, and then you had me that was 6'6". So instantly, I mean, their arms looked bigger, their shoulders were nice and round.
Sure.
I knew that my key point were my abs. I knew that's what main thing I had going for me. But in my height class, I didn't place at all. So I think I got 8th or 9th out of 9 people. But then for novice, there was 18 or 19, and I got 8th. Oh. So I was happy with that. I went into it, though, obviously everyone wants to win. Again, coming from a competitive background, I wanted to win. I wanted to do well. But this is one of the first times where I put it aside. I was like, you know what? I don't care if I win. I don't care if I place. I just want to be able to say I did it, because there's a lot of people that think that they can do it, and they might not ever do it. And there's a lot of people that just can't do it. So to me, it was a great accomplishment to be like, you know what? I got up on stage. I had 7 people judge me, compared me to 19 other people, and you know what? I did it.
Yeah. That's very true. I think I fall into that category as one of the people that thinks that I can do it, but I never do. So, great point, man. Great point, and good for you. What federation were you competing in? Was that an NPC,
NPC
shoot? Okay, so that's stacked. I mean, that's not like your local. Just anybody shows up. I mean, and especially you competed in Florida.
Yeah, in Florida, the competition in Florida is very high.
Yeah.
For bodybuilding, there was a guy that flew down from Pennsylvania, and he actually won the whole show.
Yeah.
And he grew up in Florida, so he's trying to support the NPC in Florida, which I get. But yeah, the competition.
But you wish you would have stayed
home. I had guys that were in physique that had legs bigger than some of the bodybuilders.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, as far as competition, because I follow bodybuilding pretty closely, It seems like Florida, Ohio, California. I mean, that's kind of your big three there when you start looking at state, regional stuff like that. So, but good for you, man. That's awesome. But you said earlier you're planning on doing it again, possibly, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to do one this coming summer. I moved back to Ohio, so that's where I currently am now. But I would like to go back and do the same show that I did in Florida. But if I don't do one this year, I'll definitely do one next year. So
very cool.
And then my goal is I want to place at least in the top 3 in a physique show, and then I actually want to try to move up and do classic.
That's what I was going to ask you if you were considering doing that. Now they got weight restrictions on your height there as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, and they have more classes. So they have a 6'5" to 6'6" class and a 6'6" to 6'7" class. So I could do either one of those, and they do have a maximum weight limit, and they have a minimum weight limit too.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, man, and I hope
that would even out the playing field a little bit too. I mean, now you've got guys that are equal in size and potential weights. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like NASCAR.
That's a good analogy, and it really does. And the classic bodybuilding just started this year, but I mean the way that they've streamlined things, and they're and especially in like the pro ranks where drug use was so rampant, and you get like these freaks with the giant foreheads and the square jaws and stuff like that, and now these guys in the classic division, it's kind of a throwback to like the 70s or the 80s and stuff like that, and it's really beautiful physiques at that point. So very cool. But all right, and man. Go ahead.
My big thing is with physique, and I don't mean to take anything away from anyone that's ever won a physique show. And me personally, I know the hard work that goes into getting contests ready. But I also feel like you can just be generally gifted with a great body. You can go through a somewhat easy diet and get lean down and step up on stage.
Yeah.
Whereas classic, for one, you have to have legs, and I don't know too many people that are just gifted to have great cut legs. Mm-hmm. It's something that a lot of hard work goes into. So I feel like, again, it kind of evens the playing field at classic. There's a lot of more hard work that goes into classic rather than physique. I feel like there's guys that are out there that can just put on board shorts and step on stage and come close to winning or win a physique show.
Yeah, and I would agree with you too. And I've always been kind of careful about how I word it when I talk about physique and stuff like that. But at some point, I mean, if you look at it, and even on like the pro level a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong; those guys, and like for you, example. Hang on just a second. Did we? For you, example, I know that you suffered. You talked about it and everything like that, but sometimes when you look at the lineup and the overall winners, it looks like it came down to the best hair and the best abs when you're looking at a physique show. That's why I was really excited to see when they started the classical bodybuilding division, and seeing some of the guys going over to that and putting some size on, and like you said, now it's showcasing the legs a little bit more. So
I'll tell you something though, and again, you got to kind of pussyfoot around being politically correct, I guess, but I can appreciate what effort anybody goes to in a physique show. One of the things that, I see so many times, and I know everybody else has too, you looking at the gym, you got these guys that have the buff arms, their shoulders, their chests, their backs, all the way down to their hips, and then next thing you know, they're riding on a pair of toothpicks. Mm-hmm. That's like, oh, you don't do any leg workouts at all, do you? But you look damn good in a pair of jeans. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's cool. If you're
that's not a physique show, though. And what I'm saying is, if somebody like that were to step onto the stage, they'd be kind of laughed off.
Yeah.
So, I mean, overall, I get you. Some guys have legs that are already built pretty good and that type of thing, but there's still some effort that goes into it.
Sure, yeah. Okay, man. So let's, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. We went into that a little bit more than what we planned. But in the email when we were talking, you said you're working with student athletes now who may or may not be rehabbing from injuries. And Alan and I have talked about, training a high school athlete and the different modalities that should be used to develop speed and explosive power and things like that ad nauseum on here, because it is something that I'm passionate about. So do you have any advice for, trainers and student athletes, something that they should keep in mind when they are training for performance and rehabbing from injuries? And also, what are some of the things that you're doing now as far as your personal training and your business?
Absolutely. And I think even if you're not working with student athletes and you're just a trainer, just knowing who your clients are and not, like, for example, when I work out, I like to do the very much bodybuilding workout. But, if I'm training a 57-year-old woman that wants to lose some weight, she's not going to want to come in and work out like a bodybuilder. And I feel like a lot of people just, like, they're comfortable with their workout, so I'm going to push my workout onto you because I'm comfortable with that. I know what to do. To me, the people I've been around have been great. But when I go to other gyms and I see the trainers, it just seems like that's what they're doing. And you really just got to know, who you're working with and know what they like, know what they're trying to do, and then match up that workout with what they want in the end. But with the kids, it's been awesome. I've been working there for about a month now. And right now I have 2 kids that are in basketball that suffered ACL tears 6 months ago. So they're both getting ready actually this coming week to go and take their test to see if they're able to start playing again. But I've kind of taken what I've learned and then also what I've seen in high schools, what I saw when I worked out in high school, and it was very much, here's a whiteboard, here's your workout, go do it. Let us know when no one's watching for form. No one's watching if kids are just throwing weight on just to see what weight they can throw up. And then every time I have a student athlete come in, it's I go through the basics and I say, let me see your squat.
Yeah.
And they'll show me their squat. I'm like, okay, it was good, but I'm going to tweak a few things. And the same thing with deadlift and bench press. I go through everything. So not only, they're getting a good workout when they're with me, but then they can take that to their school and then they feel comfortable when they're lifting at school. And then I also tell them that, yes, I want them to succeed in sports. I want them to get better in sports by coming to me. But my other big thing is for them to be able to use their body when they're out of sports and keep their mobility, not just be damaged because they wanted to play high school sports.
Yeah. Great point. Great point.
True. We talk about that a lot as well.
Yeah. And that's I'm actually working with a kid now. He's a football player, and he's in basketball right now, but we're really focused. His big focus is football and playing football in college. And we met last week right before Thanksgiving, or right after, one of the days. And he said, well, I just did my basketball workout. And I said, okay, well, what'd you do? And he went through the list of all of the different variations of the bicep curl that the coach had him do. And I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty useful as far as like athletic performance goes. So, okay, let's throw some bands on the squat bar and let's get after it. But that's a great point as far as having the kids come and work with you, and then they can take that information back and kind of help their whole team grow from that. So great stuff. Do you want to maybe give us? Sorry, Jake, go ahead.
No, I was saying I kind of ran into the same thing, and I would ask my basketball players, I was like, what do you guys work on when you work for speed? And then the kids, every time I get the answer, and they go, what do you mean? I'm like, what is your coach doing to help you to become faster?
Yeah.
I said, well, we do sprints. I'm like, is that it? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, they don't know what they're doing. So I'm like, you don't work on hips, you don't work on fast twitch, anything like that. He's like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm like, see.
Well, I'll take it a step further, because the kid that I'm working with now, and like I said, he's in basketball. They don't do any box jumps or anything like that. I mean, I had to explain to him what it was. So I mean, and and I always say this, I get it. The head coach, he's paid to win basketball games. I totally get that. And his focus is not, researching the latest strength and conditioning methods like what you and I do. But we got to do something because you say ACL injury, and the first thing that I think of when I hear that is imbalance between quads and hamstrings, or there was something going on with the ankles so it's something that could have been avoided, generally speaking, when it comes to injuries like that. So
I think at the same time, though, you look at what basketball coaches, football coaches are notorious for it, though, but they've got their They've got their favorite 11 or their favorite 5, and those guys are, like Jake said earlier, natural athletes, natural abilities. They use them to full potential. These other guys who have potential don't get to show it because they aren't in the gym learning the things that would put them over and above those other guys.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of balls get dropped with regard to getting these kids ready to play these sports.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and Jake, I'm sure you've run into this before, but the first day that I was working with this young man, his form was horrible when it came to the deadlift, so we tweaked a few things. He said, I've always had a terrible deadlift, so we're working on some stuff, and I'm working on, trying to teach him to use his hips and the glutes and things like that, and we added 60 pounds to his deadlift in about 15 minutes, which took him from, not being on the whiteboard where they record the best lifts on the team to having one of the best deadlifts there, and it was like, it's just a few things, and noticing how the hips are lining up in relation to the knee and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just, and there again, that might be something that got overlooked because he's not one of the starters. He's JV, he's young at this point, so nobody's really working with him. But who knows how much potential we're leaving on the table at that point because we're not focused on some of these other kids. So something that I'm passionate about.
Or he gets frustrated that he's not on the board and he sees all these other kids throwing up big weight. So he says, you know what, I'm just going to throw that weight on there, and goes to lift it and throws his back out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or an injury, of some manner.
Yep.
Well, the other side of that, too, is, though, Jake, I mean, with today and the way we are with sports and going on to college, these kids potentially, by not getting this extra training from you or Adam or whoever they choose to go to, they could be leaving $30,000 and $40,000, $50,000 on the table with regard to getting a scholarship.
Yeah.
And these are numbers that parents should really seriously be looking at because all of a sudden, now, granted, Johnny, I'm sorry, your expectation levels are a little bit too high for what you're wanting to do. But, I mean, there's some realistic outlooks that could help transform some of these mediocre guys who are showing potential into stellar performers or above average participants and open the door for more money for a scholarship.
Sure. Yeah, if little Johnny he's going into his senior year and he's 4'8" and his plans are to be the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes, we might want to revisit that.
Or a basketball star, but if Bugsy Boggs had listened to that,
Yeah. But if he's going into his senior year and he's running a 4.40 and we're trying to, shave a couple tenths of a second, then, I mean, that's something where parents should really consider making the investment. Because I told my wife, she's like, what are you charging now? And I told her, and I don't know if this is good for marketing, but her eyes got real big, and I'm like, now look, you got to think about what we're doing and what kind of future we're creating for these kids. And if we get a hold of the potential, and the future that we're creating as far as maybe avoiding an ACL injury or broken ankles or torn up shoulders or stuff like that. So it's worth the investment, I think, if it's something that you're really passionate about as far as their high school athletic performance and maybe taking it to the next level. So something that I'm passionate about, at least. But so good stuff. But all right, buddy, we don't want to hold you up too much longer, so let's go ahead and get into this final question here, and then we'll let you go. But like we said earlier, we've got your pictures up on the live stream, and you've got a pretty incredible, side-by-side there picture. I don't know if you call it your before and after picture, but you kind of went from a guy who he doesn't look fat, but he's not super muscular. You kind of look like, and I guess again I'm pussyfooting around here because I don't want to offend Jake, but you kind of look like your bro from college that you obviously you look like maybe you could drink a few beers with this guy or whatever. And then on the other side, I mean, you're completely shredded. You got your tan on. You're looking great. You got the delts popping and the biceps going on and everything like that. So we like to ask our guests on here that there might be, somebody that's listening or somebody that's watching right now, and maybe they want to make a transformation like you did, or maybe they just want to get started. They've had this thought in the back of their mind, but they haven't yet pulled the trigger, like you were talking about earlier as far as physique competitions. What do you say to this person now to kind of get them inspired or maybe light the fire underneath them to get them moving to pursue their goals? But like we do every time when we ask somebody this, you cannot say, if I can do it, you can do it. So what do you say to that person now?
I always say, especially now this time of year, because it seems like after Thanksgiving, everyone's like, okay, my New Year's resolution is going to be to lose weight or to lose this many pounds. I always tell them, why wait until New Year's? Start right now.
Mm-hmm.
So start, and then don't just say, I want to lose 15 pounds. Because there's no tangible, there's no date, there's no nothing. Find something, whether it's, maybe you like running, so you find a 5K that's in a couple of months and you sign up for it. Or you find something that, like how I did with the show, it never really hit me, I never really put a lot of effort into it until I signed up and I was like, okay, like I have this many days, I need to bust my ass because that day is going to come whether I want it to or not.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's finding something that you can work towards that's a tangible. I like a day because then you can have a countdown. Like I said, that day is coming, whether you're ready, whether you've lost a weight or not. And then it's having a great support system. So find someone that's going to support you 100% no matter what, no matter if you have bad days or good days, they're going to support you the same either way. And then it's just finding something that works for you, like I've said, and finding something that's going to make you feel good about yourself. Don't do a diet that just absolutely drains you of all life that you have to be like, yeah, I lost 15 pounds, but I feel like I could keel over in 5 minutes. Like, that does nothing for you. You're just going to revert and go back to what you were. Yeah. So find something that makes you happy that you can continue to do for the rest of your life.
Great stuff, man. Hey, Jake, I got to thank you, man. I had a great time talking to you today. I love it when we can get into kind of the physique and bodybuilding aspect of it. I know you got a few sponsors. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to before we get out of here?
Absolutely. You're rocking one of their old original shirts.
I am. I threw it on for you today.
The lifting company. So if you haven't heard of them, check them out. They're a really good group of guys. I got to meet them. I came up for the opening they had at the supplement store. Great bunch of guys. They really care about what they make. They care about the people that they help, the people that they have on their team. It's like nothing I've seen before in the fitness industry. Usually everyone's out to make $1. These people, like I said, they care about where their shirts go, who wears their shirts, and they care about their message. So if you haven't, go check them out. They have some pretty cool stuff out right now.
Do you got a discount code, Jake?
Yes, it is Jake15.
There you go.
15% off. I don't know if they're still doing it. They were doing a free shirt for Black Friday. So if you get on there, you might still be able to get it, but I'm not sure.
Very cool. Yeah, and they were running some pretty good sales all weekend. So you guys want to go to myliftingcode.com and check them out. You can use Jake's code Jake15, save you some money on the back end. Or follow them on Instagram because they're always putting different promotions up there. But yeah, and I think when you came to the supplement store, I had just missed you because they were talking about how you drove all the way to Florida to see them. And I said, dude, I don't think you're that big of a deal. And then I come to find out that you were actually moving back to Ohio that day. So I guess technically you did, but yeah, great bunch of guys there, and appreciate what they're doing.
Absolutely.
So, all right, buddy, we're going to go ahead and let you go. I want to thank you again, and
all right.
I hope that we can get you back on here in the future. We'll dig into some more meathead topics because I really enjoyed talking to you, man.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, and I would love to come back. Thank you again.
Sounds
Thanks, Jake.
Good. Thanks, buddy. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. Yep.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Building Ambition podcast with Adam Hicks and Alan Zimmerman. For more great content and to get even more inspired, visit www.buildingambition.com and on facebook.com/buildingambition. We'll catch you next time.